Known as one of the 20th Congress's House Hotshots, let's get to know Congressman Leandro Leviste. Good morning, I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno, and this is At the Forefront. Born to parents both in politics, he's riding his mission and treading a path all on his own. A self-made billionaire by the age of 30, he divested, sold off his business to challenge corruption in public office. As a first-termer congressman, Leandro Leviste is stirring the waters in Batangas, shining light on projects meant to serve the people. Is this the start of real reform or just another family name in power? We have with us House of Representative of the 1st District of Batangas, Leandro Leviste. Good morning, Congressman Leandro.
Good morning, Attorney Karen.
Well, let's start with your background. What kind of upbringing and values did you get as a son of a senator and a former governor?
Both my parents were always working very hard when I was young and very determined to achieve their objectives. So now I want to end kickbacks in DPWH and I will do everything I can to achieve that objective.
So ganun talaga yung focus mo and corruption. Has that been your focus since before when you decided, even before you decided to enter government?
Actually, the interesting parallel with this and what I did in the private sector was a lot of people in the power industry disliked that I was always trying to lower prices because the power industry, of course, high prices in the Philippines, gets away with it because there's only a few people actually in generation. And I can see the parallels in DPWH where they say there's a lot of, let's say, bid rigging in DPWH. And it just takes one person to talk about an issue that suddenly the trying to keep prices inflated becomes a lot harder.
Okay. Well, let's take a step back. With you finally going into business, what made you drop out of Yale University? It's like such a prestigious school, and you dropped out to start Solar Philippines.
I was already doing business for a few semesters before I ended up doing it full time. And I think the final factor was the DOE announced that there was going to be a feed-in tariff program with a deadline of March 2016. And it was, of course, a big opportunity loss. But at the same time, I don't think I would have made it this far in business had I not focused on solar at that time that I did. Because after completing my 63 megawatt solar farm that got into the feed-in tariff of the DOE, I used that as an asset base to expand into Tarlac and Nueva Ecija. And again, was lucky that when the renewable portfolio standard requirements kicked in, there were no large renewable energy sources available other than a project that I had developed in Nueva Ecija, which I ended up selling to Meralco the other year.
Okay. When you were in your 20s when you started Solar Philippines, how did you raise the capital for that? Did your parents help you out?
I was very lucky that I both got the proceeds from the sale of a building in Makati from my dad and a mango orchard, on which I built my first solar farm. And I think if you're coming from a very small initial capital, then your internal rate of return can be very, very high even if you have a moderate ending point. But I was lucky that I had a larger initial starting capital. So even if I was able to build it into a much larger ending capital, the, I guess, percentage gain is a lot less than people who are truly self-made. But to me, because I have had these opportunities and things that I inherited to start with, then I see it as all the more reason why I should strive to work hard and do the most with what I started with.
Okay, so for people to visualize this, when you said you had also a large starting capital, how much was that compared to having been able to sell your business eventually to around, what, 16 billion pesos?
If you don't mind talking about business on this show, then I sold a property in Buendia, Makati to Mega World, and thankfully was able to get the proceeds of my dad's property to use for my business. and used it to build the solar farm on 100 hectares in Calatagan, Batangas of my dad's as well. And that ended up being a solar project that Korea Electric Power, state-owned company, invested into at an approximately 5 billion peso valuation. And that ended up funding my company's operations until we did an IPO in December 2021, the proceeds of which we used to buy around 5 billion pesos worth of land that Meralco invested into my company for at over 30 billion peso valuation.
Over 30 billion pesos of valuation.
Yeah, so basically the history of a business is basically the milestones of those transactions, from starting capital to first project to exit, which exit I think was timed with when there was a need for more renewable energy supply, which was otherwise not available. And then after I sold my company, I had a lot of free time, and I decided then to enter politics.
Oh, so that's what made you decide to enter politics, because you already had free time after you exited your business. So it was not a reason like for you.
I had
if you didn't
no
exit
idea
business.
of entering politics until I sold the business, because I, of course, grew up with my parents in politics, and I earlier wanted to enter politics, but I became disillusioned that you can't do much, especially because politicians are actually largely beholden to businessmen in this country. But because I earned enough before entering politics, then I think that's what allows me to be truly independent, not only of influence of business, but also of the need to, for example, make pakisama with the DPWH, because one would otherwise need a source of funding for their next election. In my case, I've publicly said I'm not going to partake in the system of giving kickbacks to proponents of congressional insertions. So that's why I'm on all these shows talking about how the fact that basically Yusek Bernardo of DPWH said that almost 100% of bids in DPWH are rigged. And that translates to almost 100% of projects in DPWH have kickbacks. And if the public is enraged by what they have found about the flood control projects, then I think they should also be made aware that continuing to this day, DPWH projects have an SOP that we can do something about, especially as we tackle the 2026 budget.
Yeah, so it's really ingrained in the system. But since you grew up with parents who are both politicians, were you aware when even before you entered politics that this system of kickback was happening?
I think they say that di pa ako pinanganak, may ganito na. Pero parang naging mas malala in the last few years, as I think even the elder senators have been saying in recent hearings that it wasn't like this in their time. And the, I think, beneficial thing in my case is that we're not a family that's into construction or into getting into those not nice things in the DPWH.
So how sure are you that your parents had no history ever
But
of
the difference of me
being
and my
able to
mom
get any kickbacks?
is that, well, okay, if I can reveal my bias, I think if you have a source of wealth outside of politics, then you can at least afford not to get kickbacks. But the difference of me and my mom is that mas conservative siya as to what she doesn't and does do. And that's why she isn't fighting people as much as I do.
So you mean to say like your mom was also in the system for a long time? I mean, she's been in politics for many years, but your style is different from your mom. Your mom wouldn't expose this or wouldn't
so
say out loud.
Even among other members of Congress whom I know do not take kickbacks, they tell me that at the least hindi sila nakikialam sa DPWH. So sila hindi kumukuha ng kickbacks, pero hindi din nila nilalabanan. But I guess the difference with me is if I think na may mali, gusto kong itama ang mali. Kahit na maraming mga nagagalit na sa akin ngayon.
Okay, well, you've made serious allegations against former Congressman Eric Buhain about questionable DPWH projects in Batangas. What compelled you or prompted you to come up with this expose, or was it because he was a political rival?
I think the substandard projects in my district were something that were already an issue since last year, after Typhoon Christine, when the Binambang Bridge actually collapsed. And I personally funded the repair of this important bridge in Balayan, Batangas. And the flood control along the river was torn apart, and people were already telling me then na kaya siya nasira dahil yung dapat 12-meter na sheet pile ay mas maiksi pa. And so we, during the DPWH controversies earlier days, started measuring the sheet piles and found that the 12 was actually 3 to 5 meters. And I don't think then it's an allegation that there was corruption that has taken place in DPWH projects in the 1st District of Batangas, beyond all of the accounts from people who are contractors or connected to DPWH from the 1st District of Batangas. The projects speak for themselves, where basically there hasn't been a flood control project in my district that has not been damaged, that is not substandard. And apart from flood control, of course, lots of roads are also not in good condition in my district. It's the poorest district in Batangas, which I hope will change because of the great potential of its location, and also lots of overpriced projects. So I guess I'm focusing on the problems of the projects in my district because that's where I have a mandate and am most intimately familiar. But at the same time, should not lose sight of the fact that these are problems that are systemic throughout the whole DPWH and not just in the 1st District of Batangas.
Yeah, and you entered the limelight when you exposed an attempted bribery from a district engineer. But there are others who claim that that was a setup or an entrapment where you had your own people soliciting donations for your foundation. What is your response to that?
Well, definitely, I was not the one who set that meeting. The engineer asked my staff if I was available that day, and there shouldn't be donations given to politicians from contractors, period. And actually, I think this is a policy that should be implemented nationwide, that the defense of the district engineer is it wasn't a bribe, it was not a consideration in exchange for my stopping investigating their projects. The contractors just wanted to help my foundation give scholarships to students. And it was funny though that the cash came with a piece of paper listing projects that we were investigating. So I think the public can judge based on those facts. The bigger issue is it's really factored in to the projects, and there's so much fat in these prices. That's what I'm fighting now. I would just want to bring to attention of your viewers that what was being offered to me in August of 2025 was not even a kickback for new projects. It was a kickback for projects that were already awarded to contractors, meaning you can assume may ibinigay na kickback na. And even after that, dahil ako yung bagong congressman na sumisilip sa mga kontrata nila, may pambigay sila ng kickback sa akin pa.
So, para hindi mo siguro itigil.
Yes, so basically, that's how much fat there is in the prices of these projects, na tapos na nga sila magbigay ng kickback para makuha yung kontrata, meron pa silang pambigay ng kickback sa bagong congressman pa. But for 2026, again, my district has, let's say, 1.6 billion of allocable to the congressman. And if I take 25% from that, then that's 400 million pesos. And I have asked the Committee on Appropriations to just reduce the cost of the projects in my district and then give my district additional classrooms with the savings.
Okay, but isn't that practice na allocable, parang also questionable because then you're not driven by a plan to develop where it's needed, but you're trying to appease all
Absolutely.
the congressmen.
That's why I want to interview Attorney Karen Jimeno also as a former DPWH Undersecretary.
Oh, yeah.
How is the DPWH budget really written? Because what I heard from the Senate
Yeah.
hearings is that may mga insertions sa preparation ng National Expenditure Program pa lang.
Yeah, I heard that too. But I wasn't part of the planning. But yes, I can definitely give you insights on that. But let's go back to you. So you were also a donor to your mother. You were one of the major contributors to your mom's Senate campaign to the tune of 100 million pesos. So the PCIJ report flagged this as a potential conflict of interest. But what's your response to that? Before you answer this question, we'll have to take a short break. At the Forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the Forefront. Congressman Leanne, you were a major contributor to your mother's campaign, Senator Lauren Legarda, to the tune of 100 million pesos. This was flagged by the PCIJ as a potential conflict of interest. What is your response to that?
I gave that to help my mom and not as a businessman trying to win support from a politician, because I don't think I need to donate to my mom to convince her to do anything.
You have an influence over your mom, or does it go also the other way around?
I mean, I don't need to, of course, make palakas to her by donating to her. I donate to her because I believe in what she's doing. And that, I think that report was from a list of other members of Congress and Senate who received donations from contractors. And maybe it was just that I was on that list that they were just putting it there for completeness. But I don't think the intention is for them to say that a son donating to a parent is analogous to a contractor donating to a politician. But if I can broaden the discussion, I think it's not just government contractors who should be looked into, because those who are not receiving donations from government contractors are receiving donations from private businessmen. It costs a lot to run for the Senate or for Congress. And if someone doesn't have the means themselves, then they'll have to get it from somewhere. And I think the public is very much focused now on corruption in DPWH, but corruption from regulated industries with influential businessmen are arguably a bigger drag on the country's economy. But maybe that's for another episode of your show.
Oh, yeah, let's discuss that on another episode. But would you say that your company, who has had to do renewable energy auctions and get a legislative franchise, did not benefit from Senator Lauren Legarda being in any of the committees in Senate?
Actually, people who follow the Philippine Stock Exchange can say that my business took off between 2019 to 2022, and then I sold it to Meralco in 2023. The time when my mom was not in the Senate, and was not because of a contract that I was behind, because I actually had a joint venture that got that contract, and it was not me that was leading those negotiations. The value of my company was land that I bought in Nueva Ecija with the help of the Philippine Stock Exchange investors. And it was because Meralco needed the project that there was this value creation. So I think the particular point that you raise is easily disproven by facts, that I really benefited from those contracts that had been referred to, because the thing I learned actually is that sometimes the parts of a business that are less difficult and have little to do with politics can be the most profitable, that it's somewhat uncorrelated. There are easy things to do that are more profitable if you just think about what a big opportunity was. And in my case, I can say very plainly, I was able to earn what I did because I spotted that there was an opportunity to buy land
Yeah.
that the country's
Okay.
largest utility really needed
Yeah.
by 2023.
Well, let's go back to a recent episode where when you had a press conference saying that there are appointees of Secretary Vince Dizon of the DPWH that are still linked to contractors. And then shortly after, Undersecretary Ari Perez resigned. Did you have proof that it was specifically Yusek Perez that was related to contractors?
I have proof on Yusek Perez and on many other appointees of Secretary Dizon. And I also wanted to clarify that I mentioned in one press con that there's another one, and that some had said that that means that it wasn't Yusek Ari. I said, no. It's many of them.
So hindi ba accurate yung report? Because I think over the weekend there
Yes,
were reports that said you backtracked. So hindi pala
I actually now have
accurate yun.
some first-hand encounter on how powerful some of the social media machinery of the DPWH can be, because I've never before seen real people defending DPWH, but on social media there are people saying that Leandro should prove that there's corruption in DPWH. I think, if I can say this, Attorney Jimeno, given the context of DPWH, one is almost guilty until proven innocent. Because I think the vast majority of people who have been in any way involved in bids in the last few years are suspect, because Yusek Bernardo said almost 100% are rigged. And to answer your point directly, had reason to specifically name Yusek Ari Perez. We also have a lot of common connections, which is why maybe they also knew that I knew some things that are not yet public. And if Secretary Dizon didn't ask that this not be further brought out into the public, then I could continue talking about Yusek Ari Perez and other members of his team until today. But for now, I have said that my objective is for the reforms that I proposed to get done with the cooperation of the DPWH, and that includes lowering the prices, which I think the DPWH has committed to be done very
tanggalin
soon.
na yung dupa, right?
Yes, and second is being transparent on what are the projects in each district, what's allocable and non-allocable, and who are the proponents. And I hope that when the DPWH releases this data, then there would be a lot of avoidance of the parking by contractors and paying for projects to be inserted into the budget.
Well, Leanne, you are also being compared to Kiko Barzaga because you are both being labeled as Nepo babies. But how would you distinguish yourself? Are you in any way similar, or how do you differentiate yourself? Because your parents are also known to be very popular politicians.
I respect all my members, all my colleagues in Congress. I think all 317 members of Congress have their own unique contribution. And if I can just say that every single one of them should be given recognition for what they do, including Congressman Barzaga, but including also the other members of the minority who also have valuable contributions. So I wouldn't want to
comment.
say that I'm only giving recognition to one of my colleagues. I would like to give recognition to all of my colleagues in the 20th Congress.
Okay. Are you and Kiko the same? Or would you say more the same, more
we have
dissimilar?
Things in common with all of the 317 members of the 20th Congress.
Okay, very vague. But lastly, so you have been talking about reforms in DPWH, very meaningful reforms. Ano yung masasabi mo that DPWH put their budget on big provinces and prioritize asphalting over classroom constructions?
Well, I was actually raising the point that between Central Luzon, NCR, and Southern Luzon, we are more than 40% of the country's population and maybe 60% of the economy and taxpayers, but only get 25% of the DPWH budget. So there's calls now to abolish the DPWH, and a lot of the reaction is that we need DPWH, but especially in NCR, which gets maybe not even 8% of the DPWH budget, but pays maybe 30% of the taxes that fund DPWH, it would be better off to just abolish DPWH.
Yeah. Or what about more PPPs, no? But we're running out of time. So you mentioned kanina may natitira pang undersecretary that you have evidence that may conflict of interest. Are you going to bring this up with Secretary Dizon or just let that person remain in DPWH?
I've already stated that I have talked with Secretary Dizon after our events last week, and I think they're working on the 2026 budget, and I hope that it'll turn out well, and that will show their sincerity in reforming the DPWH if we instill lower prices and transparency on insertions to ensure there are no kickbacks in 2026. And for the sake of getting the reforms in the budget done, I wouldn't want to return to that subject, but I think that if there are questions on the actions of the DPWH officials in the future, then I would be glad to say more if requested.
Okay, so you'll continue to be a bantay for all types of corruption. Thank you so much, Congressman Leandro
Thank you,
Leviste.
Attorney.
Very pleasure to have you here. Congressman Leandro Leviste may be a privileged son, but now he's learning to learn what it takes to wield it. In the hands of the young, change is never just an idea. It's a choice made every day. And if leaders like him choose transparency over tradition, then maybe our politics still has a chance to grow up. Be timely informed, be insightful of the news. Always stay at the forefront. Join us again tomorrow for conversations on issues that matter. This is Attorney Karen Jimeno. Thank you for spending your morning with us.